From ancient witches to futuristic time jumpers, and most recently, Southern Prohibition vampires. Today's Focus on Oscar Rewind is a nominee who is powerful in their restraint. We are in Season 3 of Oscar Rewind, and today I am looking at Netflix and Regency Enterprises' His House. Written and directed by Remi Weekes, based on a story by Felicity Evans and Toby Venables, the film premiered in January of 2020 at Sundance, and then during one of the strangest years in recent memory, was released on the streamer around Halloween of that year. What's up, everybody? Cinephile Mike here, and it is a new episode of Oscar Rewind, where I look back at the films of this past year's Oscar nominees and winners. Make sure you hit subscribe so you don't miss any of these throwbacks. We've got some really good ones coming. We are in Chapter 2 of our journey, Breakout Performances. This chapter focuses on early standout roles from some of this year's other nominees, the performances that helped define careers, even if it wasn't the first. And today's spotlight is for Wunmi Mosaku, who has been treading the boards for about 2 decades, but as of late has really been making her mark. Now, if you've never seen His House, here's a quick spoiler-free setup. Bol, played by Sope Dirisu, and Real, played by Wunmi Mosaku, are refugees fleeing war-torn Africa with their daughter Nayagak, played by Maleka Abigaba. Now, while on the perilous journey, Nayagak is lost in the currents, but Bol and Real survive, and are eventually granted probational asylum in England about 3 months after staying in a detention center. Arriving at their new temporary home with a laundry list of rules to follow, they are met by their caseworker Mark, played by Matt Smith. He shows them their home, which has the door falling off its hinges the second they walk in. Clearly not palatial, it is still a home. Bol is excited for the opportunity and tries to assimilate to their new surroundings and culture. Meanwhile, Real is not as quick to be swayed. Suffering from the grief of losing their daughter, she holds on to what she can of the past. As time goes on, they each have different experiences acclimating, but the one thing they have in common is that they begin to feel a dark presence in their home. Nayagak, or what they believe is her, is haunting them from beyond, and more seems to be wrong in the home. And as they try to ascertain what is happening, they eventually are brought into the crosshairs of, you know what, I'm not going to spoil it, but they learn that certain folklores of their culture have followed them to their new home and are seeking retribution. For what? Well, all comes out as Bol and Real try to decide what future they are to have once they determine what is real and what is not. I know I leave it vague there, but that is part of the fun of this film. You know, I actually watched this film back in 2020, but for some reason, I couldn't remember it that well. Perhaps I didn't pay too close attention, or I was just consuming content to take my mind off the year. But on this rewatch, this film really floored and gripped me. It was so much more than just another run-of-the-mill haunted house that tries to fall into the elevated horror machine. Is it elevated horror? A bit. But Weekes' screenplay, Evans and Venables' story, it really dips into African folklore and crafts a haunting antagonist for Real and Bol. Additionally, as they present certain plot elements, you might just find your jaw dropping as you put these pieces back together. There's something to be said about survivor's guilt, and that is on full display here. Twisting this into something that requires retribution is a fascinating take until we learn certain elements. And, you know, this film, it could have easily faltered if not for the wonderful performances by both Dirisu and Mosaku. And while the spotlight is on Mosaku, you really can't separate these two performances. They're like the perfect yin and yang to craft this story. However, while Dirisu is put in certain circumstances where he has to enter into the horror territory with some blood-curdling moments, especially at its climax, Mosaku, in a role that could be screams and out for blood, adapts the Meryl Streep in Devil Wears Prada method, not really ever raising her voice above an even tone. Choosing often like a passive aggressiveness over anger is such a solid choice that she wraps you around her finger from the very beginning until we reach the end of the film, when she has another moment to make you smack your head. Visually, the film is expertly executed. Across the crisp 90-minute runtime, the house deteriorates alongside Bol and Real while we have this haunting, atmospheric music by Roque Baños, chilling us to the core. With his directorial debut, Weekes proves a voice to be heard, and jumping ahead to awards a bit, he won the BAFTA for Outstanding Debut by a British writer, director, and producer, and Best Director at the British Independent Spirit Awards. He really crafted a restrained horror film, the likes of which horror directors more senior than him have attempted and slightly missed the mark. They could learn something from this one. I'll say it's upsetting. I can't find any other upcoming work by this director, but he's definitely on my radar. So let's get into the rest of the awards. I have no box office to discuss. This film went directly to the streamer, Netflix. Some other awards highlights. It had, just under 4 dozen nods and wins. There were 2 other BAFTA nods, Outstanding British Film of the Year, and a Leading Actress nod for Mosaku. And it had 15 additional nods at the British Independent Film Awards. In addition to the directing win, it also had wins for production design, effects, and, not surprisingly, Best Actress for Mosaku. And finally, it won the NHK Award at Sundance for upcoming filmmakers where it premiered. Have to say, revisiting this one, wasn't sure my score would be that high, but honestly, I will say, in its genre, this is a true 5-star, wonderful film, creeps up on you with its depth and scope. Trust me, if you haven't seen this one, head over to Netflix right now. Watch it. And that is where I'm going to end episode 13 of season 3 of Oscar Rewind. If you enjoyed this episode, please make sure to subscribe to the channel and let me know in the comments, what would it take to get you to stay in a haunted house? Please follow me on all social media platforms and Letterboxd, and check out my website, cinephilemike.com, for more exclusive cinematic content. I'll see you for the next Rewind, but until then, this is Cinephile Mike saying take a break and watch something new.